everybody, thanks for joining us this week on Up in the Air. I'm Lydia Knox, and joining me this week at the desk for the last time this semester is Casey Herman.
That's right, Lydia. This week's episode will be the last one for Mike and I. I can't believe how fast this year flew by. But on this week's episode, we will have stories on a new robot that will clear snow for you, dementia being linked to natural disasters, and air pollution affecting young adults. Also, Mike will be stopping by later at the Climate Wall on what the details we can expect into mid-November.
We will also have features this week from another one of our Up in the Air alums, Hunter Williams.
But first, here's Update in the Air.
As thunder rolls and lightning sparks the sky, some might find themselves in a state of panic. If you are afraid of weather events, your behaviors and choices during those times of emergency are often motivated by an instinctive process. According to a 2014 study published in the American Meteorological Society Journal, approximately 1 in 10 Americans may suffer from some degree of severe weather fear. Researchers from Ball State University and the University of Kansas said study participants reported feelings of anxiety and helplessness and increased heart pounding and the need to change their schedules when faced with a severe weather event. The most common behavior surrounding these weather events was constant monitoring of television, radio, internet, or weather applications, according to researchers. And what about pets? A veterinarian in California found that dogs in particular deal with storm phobias and sometimes get downright terrified. They found some dogs tried to chew their way out of crates and it ended up breaking their teeth, while others jumped through plate glass windows during thunderstorms. Next time a storm is coming, keep the radio and TV on and stay aware.
Across the United States, snow has already fallen in parts of the east and west, with more on the way as winter creeps closer. While many will soon be forced to get out of their snow shovels and snowblowers to clear their sidewalks and driveways, perhaps in the not-too-distant future, robots will handle that burdensome task. At least one company is already planning on it. Kobe, a 3-in-1 autonomous robot, is being described as the world's first multifunctional robot for yard work in all seasons, as it's capable of mowing the lawn and vacuuming leaves in addition to clearing snow. Kobe comes with a companion app which allows the user to drive the device around their yard or driveway, as well as instruct it where to blow snow, and navigates on its own to built-in GPS and a variety of sensors. Shoveling snow has been linked to health risks, such as heart attacks, and people have suffered injuries due to their limbs as a result of snowblowers, especially in the elderly. For those interested in obtaining a Kobe, the product is still in the testing phase, but it will be available for purchase in the 2017-2018 winter season for a price of about $4,000.
A new study finds even young, healthy adults can suffer blood vessel damage from air pollution. Periodic exposure to fine particulate matter, like tiny pollutants from cars and factories, isn't a health risk only for the ill and the elderly. The 3-year study in Utah tied this form of air pollution to abnormal changes in the blood of young adults with an average age of 23. Over time, they found these abnormalities could lead to heart disease. The findings suggest that living in a polluted environment could promote development of high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke more pervasively and at an earlier stage than previously thought. This study helps explain how toxins in the air might cause such damage. It suggests air pollution increases cell damage and artery injury. It also suggests that there are biochemical signs that prevent new blood vessel growth and promote cell death. Although the American Heart Association had warned of the risk of air pollution over a decade ago, it focused on those already at high risk for heart disease or who already suffered from it. Now, this study focuses on young, healthy adults. We'll be back in a moment with more.
Corn mazes are a staple of fall, and believe it or not, the weather has a big impact on how these mazes grow. I'm here at Harner Farms, just outside of State College, to take a closer look at the impact of the weather on this corn maze, and more importantly, to see if I can make it to the middle. Now you may notice that this corn, well, it's kind of brown right now, and that's because we're getting later into the season with some colder temperatures, and this, of course, is where the weather comes into play. The optimal temperature for corn growth is between 68 and 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the temperature drops below 41 degrees, the growth of corn starts to slow down. Extremely cold temperatures cause freeze damage, which, especially at the seedling stage, can kill the corn. Before entering the maize, I talked to Chris Harner about the optimal conditions for growing the maize.
You know, it stays cool without the super hot weather, although the corn likes hot weather, but, you know, we don't. So if it's like 90 and, you know, hot in the evenings, corn grows really well. So that would be ideal.
Well, we've been in the maze for a couple of minutes now. We just came across this. Hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we don't end up spending the night here. In addition to temperature, precipitation is also a crucial part of corn growth. Corn generally has high water requirements, and 1/4 inch of water per day is necessary for rapid growth. Water stress leads to reduced corn height and leaf area, not a good combination when growing a corn maze.
You know, this year it got awfully dry in July, and at that time the corn was maybe about a foot tall, and we were real concerned that, you know, it was either going to die or it just wouldn't get tall enough. You know, we had one year, that was probably 8 or 10 years ago, where it was really dry, and the corn only got 4 or 5 feet tall, and, you know, it kind of takes the fun out of it. You just see right over the top. So luckily we got some rain there at the end of August, and shot up and sized up great, so we're happy with the way it turned out.
Well, guys, we've been in here for a while, but I'm not quite sure if it's been long enough to take a bath yet. You know what? I think I'll stay out of that one. Now, it is important to note that growing corn for a maize can be slightly different than growing corn for yield. As opposed to planting in late spring, the Harners plant around July 4th so that the weather will keep the corn green as long as possible, providing for the best looking maize.
Yeah, now when you're driving around, you see a lot of field corn, you know, starting early. So, you know, those guys, the big grain guys, they plant it as early as they can, you know, end of April, before the chance of the last frost before it emerges. But for us, we want it to stay green, so we plant it late. So it's usually about July 4th weekend. And with the dry weather, you know, it's always a gamble. So it's always wetter in the spring, and things can get off to a good start, whereas in the summer it's kind of dry. So we plant it late, so it stays green, and in that case, you know, it's thicker and you can't see through it.
Well, we finally made it out of the maze. It took maybe a little bit longer than we originally anticipated, but we had a good time. We learned a lot about the impacts that weather can have on corn mazes just like this. If you'd like to try the maze for yourself, coming out to Harner Farms, it's a great time. For Up in the Air, I'm Hunter Williams.
Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for joining us again. So Casey, how do you feel that this is your last episode ever on Up in the Air?
It is my last episode. I feel that this time went very fast, and I'm very sad actually about it.
I know, it's crazy. And Mike, the same goes for you. How do you feel about this?
I'm actually really surprised that it's gone by so quickly. I've done over 20 episodes of this show, and it's actually kind of mind-blowing to realize that I've actually done a full 2 semesters of this show. And Lydia, I'm sure you'll feel this way at the end of April next semester, but it goes by quickly and it's a good time.
I know, I'm sure it does. So what's on our fall foliage monitor at this time of year?
Well, we're actually starting to run out of the fall foliage, to be honest, Lydia. We're actually getting close to the tail end here. Most of the northern New England states have almost passed their entire peak, actually, except for a little bit here in the coastal parts of Massachusetts. A little bit, about half of Pennsylvania has passed its fall foliage peak, but a little bit western Pennsylvania and southern and southeastern Pennsylvania are still clinging to those peak colors. So get out there the next couple days, because if not, it's going to be gone. And a little bit here haven't quite hit their peak in the most southern parts of Jersey yet, but that should be hitting peak soon as we start getting to some very variable weather as the fall progresses into the winter. And getting into our leaf drop report as well, very high, almost complete leaf drop in most of the northernmost New England states. It's usually the oak trees that hang onto their leaves the last. And again, getting into Pennsylvania, very high leaf drop into almost the same area that's past the peak, and then moderate leaf drop in the areas that are still at their peak colors. So you can still see some pretty darn good colors in southern and western Pennsylvania. But again, leaf drops are almost pretty much gone as we start getting into later in this month, and also once we get into December, all the leaves should be just about gone. And then, actually, speaking of getting into the winter, we have some snow, a little bit less than actually I believe our last one, but again, some snow here in the Grand Tetons and also in the northern Cascade Mountains of Washington State. But as I zoom in here into the northeast, we actually do have a little bit of snow here, again, up into the bordering parts of New England here, the northernmost parts of the states of both New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, getting some possible lake effect snow and that kind of stuff, which some lake effect snow, and also a little bit as they start to really get into the winter time. We'll see these numbers. We'll likely see these snow numbers pick up as it starts to spread down from the north as we get into the winter. And speaking of winter, as we take a look into our next week's pattern for about November 13th on to about the 18th of November, we have a very large, strong trough dipping down over almost the entire eastern half of the United States, looking to turn into a cutoff low pressure system, which means for us that we're going to get some pretty consistent weather for a couple days. Consistent meaning it'll be the same way over a course of a couple days. And going into that, we were on the east side of that cutoff low, which means we'll get some south winds and some winds from the south, some nice warmer, a little bit more moist air from the south as we look to be a little bit warmer than we typically see in this time of the year. Again, northern New England, actually most of New England, looks to be actually a fair amount above normal for this time of the year, and actually with those southern moist winds as well. But however, a little bit of California looks to be warmer, much warmer than average. And take note here, there's actually no place on the country on this map that's going to be below average that we expect for this time, for November 15th to the 21st. But going back to what I was saying about warm, moist air, that lends us to have a little bit higher precipitation expectations for this week of November 15th to the 21st, because we'll have a lot of nice warm air coming up over from the Atlantic Ocean. And again, most of the country looks to be most of the northeastern half looks to be a little bit warmer than we typically expect. However, into the Pacific Northwest and northern California looks to be a little bit drier than normal for this time of the year. And also down here into Texas, most of central Texas is looking to be a little bit drier than this time of the year for November 15th to the 21st. And going into our drought monitor, last but not least, again, California's drought is very, very heavy, and it's very, very unfortunate that they're having to have such problems with precipitation. However, this drought here in the southeast United States into Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and parts of Tennessee and South Carolina, again, this entire region here, the southeast into the south, looks to be getting worse in terms of the drought numbers, because this was not this bad last week, and that's really unfortunate because we're starting to get into the winter, and they tend to get and as we get into the winter, they're really having a really heavy deficit with respect to rain amounts. However, up here in the Northeast, we're looking to be a little bit better than what we were earlier this fall, because we picked up some actually much more rain than we were typically expected to see. And so that's kind of lightened our drought numbers. But overall, the Northeast is still dealing with some drought conditions, as well as Pennsylvania. But it has gotten better over the last about month and a half because of the rain we received in both September and October. But that's all I have at the climate wall, and we'll send it back to Lydia and Casey at the desk.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Although this is Mike and I's last show, we will come back next week with one final episode in the fall semester. But that's all we have for this week's episode. For now, I'm Casey Herman.
And I'm Lydia Knox. See you next week, up in the air.